Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my first episode of.
You've been doing this for a while already,
No,
haven't
no, but
you?
this was for my therapeutic
How many
purposes.
podcasts are you making?
Well, I'm gonna only do one for now.
Okay.
This one's for Kimura Life, which is my therapeutic practice. My name is Claudia. Um, I am a mental health professional, joined by.
My name is Walter, and I used to be a mental health professional. Now I'm just working a government position.
Okay, yeah. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about mental health and creators, artists, creativity, and how that plays a role in someone's career path,
Mm-hmm.
journey, um, mental health, in addition to that.
There's so many different layers within mental health.
Yes, there are a lot,
Yeah,
especially from being a creator to developing yourself as someone you would like to be.
right. And it's like even thinking about creating in itself, it's meant to be therapeutic. It's a mode of self expression. So
Exactly.
giving yourself time to create is a giving yourself time to express yourself in a constructive manner, in a way.
Exactly. And for me, I this creativity topic, creator, artist topic for me is very close to my heart because
Mm.
before being a mental health professional, I went to school for film, and so I went through this kind of creative journey with my own stuff, and kind of ended up in mental health field,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's me merging all of it together. And so it's a pretty interesting creative journey, I guess you can say. And a lot of obstacles in the way,
Yeah.
but I think now it's a pretty good place to be in my journey.
I think it's like you touched on something that was pretty interesting because you have a background in film and then you bring that into a mental health space. But I remember when I was going to school and it's like when people were giving an introduction, what you find is there are not that many psychology majors that are going into mental health counseling. There are people from so many different walks of life, so many different backgrounds. So it's like it's a different perspective in the field of mental health, and it's a very wide field. So it's like it's interesting seeing the different talents and gifts that people are able to bring into that space because it in a way personalizes the mental health experience.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things for me, for myself, in my practice.
Hmm.
It's bringing this kind of unique, personalized experience
Right.
within your own session, but within your own treatment plan, within uh, modalities as well.
Hmm.
Like the way I approach mental health could be more kinesthetic, more creative, more unique to the client.
Right.
And yeah.
And you say the word kinesthetic, and it's like that's the background that I used to have before going into mental health, in which I was in exercise science. I did some personal training stuff, and it's like I enjoyed it. It's a wonderful experience. It's something that I encourage for people in everyday life. Yet there was something about it that felt incomplete. It's like it's a part of our lives, but it doesn't take up the totality of our lives. There's other things that preface exercise, things that come prior to that. So then it's like I'm working through people with certain, exercise goals. They come in, they have a plan in mind, they want to do something for the summer, and I'm like, that's amazing. But the way that I approached exercise was more from like a wellness perspective, in which it's like it's something that's relieving, it's something that builds strength, it's something that builds character. Yet most of the time, and when I was doing personal training stuff, plenty of most people have that, but there was also that I want to be right by summer.
Yeah,
So there's the
exactly.
layers to it. So I think that's what kind of drew me to the mental health field, where it's like, this is great, but what if we went a little bit deeper
Yeah.
when it comes to why we do what we do?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned a really interesting part where what we learn throughout our journey is part of
Yeah.
our journey. It's isn't necessarily your identity for like the rest
Yeah.
of your life. It could be part of your identity, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it will define everything else. And I think it's important to acknowledge that every path and every career journey
Mm-hmm.
can change, and that it's not permanent, and then that
Mm-hmm.
it's temporary, that different things you learn in different places
Right.
can turn into a bigger purpose or a
Mm-hmm.
bigger understanding of what it is that
Yeah.
you are creating or um, representing, or where you want to end up as a professional
Right. And
or
it's like it actually makes me think about what we talked about briefly was it's like it's a form of self-expression.
yeah.
So the very careers, the things that we undertake are in a capacity, a form of self-expression because we see a field that we're interested in, we engage within that field, we become professionals in that field, we become proficient in it because it's something that we're attracted to, it's something that we enjoy. And in doing that work, it is a part of our identity and a part of our self-expression,
Yeah.
but it's not the totality of who someone is. And I really like how you brought that up
Yeah.
because one of the things I thought about is like, what are the different things that incorporate wellness? There's like an entire, in some theories, there's a wheel,
Yeah.
there's a financial part, there's a spiritual part, there's an emotional part, there's a professional part, there's a physical part. There are many different layers to who people are. It's like people are complex. They're not restricted to their 9 to 5 positions. There's 24 hours in a day, and not everyone's doing their job 24 hours a day. There are other things that contribute to someone's life and well-being.
Yeah. And I want to mention this, like you said, not you're not restricted to your 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that in itself is a perspective, right?
Yeah.
Cuz you can very much say I am restricted in my 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
I can't move a finger out of my 9 to 5, right? Or I'm exhausted after this 9 to 5.
Right.
What is there to do after this, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
but
Is there more to life than our jobs?
exactly. So how can people look at their jobs and say,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, yeah, I do have a 9 to 5, but is this 9 to 5 serving me? Is
Mm-hmm.
this career choice serving me? Is
Yeah.
the culture in this place serving me in a healthy way?" Right?
Even thinking about the culture in itself, it's like, does that influence our career fields?
Yeah.
Do we sometimes find ourselves in a position because we believe this is what's most acceptable within culture as opposed to an authentic form of self-expression in which
Yeah.
it's like I could be someone who's super creative, which I'm not, but I aspire to be. But it's more so the realm in which it's like I'm doing this job, I'm doing this position because it brings stability, it brings finances, it pays the bills, it puts food in my stomach. Yet there are plenty of moments where people could be not content within their positions because they're focusing on surviving as opposed to like actually creating opportunity to thrive in life and actually pursue. And if we're going to go by a Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Mm-hmm.
self-actualization, but there are different things underneath that pyramid before we get to the very top of it, the very foundations that lead us to actually want to self-actualize for a way.
Yeah. And I think this is important because self actualization can actually be very close to purpose.
Yeah.
It could very much define who you are at your core. And so, not the I want to separate the difference between the tasks that you do to get to your purpose and your
Mm-hmm.
purpose, right? And so you can very much say, "Hey, I want to help people. The reasons why I want to do this is because I want to help people. I want to
Mm-hmm.
inspire people." Okay, great. So, what are the steps or tasks that you're taking to get to that point, right? Or are you doing that every day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is your day to day career inspiring people, helping people? And so, is that the thing that brings you joy,
Mm-hmm.
or is the task itself bringing you joy, right? And so, like,
It makes me think about like an intrinsic, extrinsic form of motivation.
yeah,
It's like there are outside circumstances that motivate us to do certain things, and then there are just things that are inherently rewarding
yeah,
without all the other things that come with it. Like I think about exercise because it's like that's where I came from before,
yeah,
in which it's like, oh, I want to prepare for, let's say, a Spartan race. So there's different activities that you got to do. There's a certain level of fitness that you need to have if you want to navigate these obstacles. So it's like I get into an exercise program and I'm like, but the reason I'm doing this is because I want to prepare for this race. I want to place myself in a position where I can succeed in this obstacle, in this event.
yeah,
But then there's the other person who does the very same race and they don't care about the race in itself. It's like, oh, it just happens to fall on my schedule and it's fun. But they've already been exercising, they've already been training because it's just something they love to do. it's something that's satisfying in itself. It's something that's rewarding, regardless of outside accolades that come with it.
Yeah.
So it's like two people looking at the very same event, but different motivations behind it. In which it's like, here's the thing though, more often than not, before we can become intrinsically motivated to do something, there has to be an external motivation at times.
Yeah.
So it's like something can start as external, in which it's like, after I do this race, it's like, that was so rewarding, that was so much fun. I want to keep training, I want to keep exercising, because though I was able to complete this event, there was another reward that came with it, not just the completion, but the satisfaction
Yeah.
of going through that process. Like you were saying, preparation was enjoyable in itself.
Yeah. And I think it's important to also acknowledge the satisfaction piece,
Yeah.
right? When you are doing this task, whatever task it is, we can even call it coping skill, right?
Yeah.
Is this coping skill give you satisfaction? Are you present with it?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting how you put those two perspectives on the race, but when you said these perspectives, it was almost like you were present with them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so a lot of people end up doing coping skills, right? And task, but are they actually present within that task, right? You could be very much exercising, but
Yeah.
if you spend 80% of your time in the past or in the future and creating anxiety through
You're taking
all
yourself
of this,
out of that moment.
you're not there. You're not present with this task. And so one of the main places where anxiety does come from is the past or the future. If you spend about 80% of your time thinking about the past or the future, are you actually present and mindful and in the moment with yourself and others, right? It's very easy to say, oh, I'm doing this coping still, I'm exercising, I want to get better, but the entire time you're thinking about what you're going to do next, what you're going to eat next, what happened yesterday, what happens tomorrow, and then the entire time was spent with anxiety.
And here's the thing, you could still say, oh, I checked that box, I exercised, I wrote in my journal, I took a walk, I did all these different tasks. But the thing is wellness rooted in doing a lot of tasks?
Yeah, there you go. And so for me, it's like, okay, how can we stay present within all these tasks, right? How can we say the word mindfulness, and mindfulness is such a repetitive
It's
word
a choice
now.
word. It's
yeah,
like,
everybody's like, I hate the word mindfulness. It's like, I get it, but the action of mindfulness is actually being mostly 100% of your time present within those tasks.
Be where you are in the moment.
Exactly. And so like what I like to give a great example about like anxiety, it's like anxiety comes from two places, right? And if you look at your brain as a battery, how much time are you spending in the past or the future? And is it 80% of the time? Is it 20% of the time? Is it 100% of the time? And if you do spend a lot of time in the past or the future, then you have a lot of anxiety, basically. So the whole, in order to work through this, right, we want to spend less time in the past or in the future.
Right.
And we want to spend 80% of your time in the present. And I would say a 20% in the past or the future. And so what can you do in the present when you think about the past or the future? You can plan for the future, and that's in the present. You can allocate an hour to plan for the future, right? And if you spend some time in the past, that's okay too. That's healthy. It's healthy to think about the things that happened in the past. And what I want to say about the past is like acknowledging the past, right? Versus avoiding the past. Right?
There could even be a matter of reframing the past.
Exactly. So like spending time in acknowledging that yes, the past did happen, and I do feel all of these emotions within the past, but allocate some time to it, right? Give yourself an hour to spend some time in the past, and then move forward into what you're going to do in that present moment. What can you do now? What can you control now? Versus I'm going to, freeze for the future, because sometimes people do freeze about thinking too much into the future.
And
so,
that's what happens with anxiety
yeah,
sometimes, because it's like anxiety in itself is not bad.
no, it's
It's
not.
something that we experience.
Yeah,
Yet, does anxiety move us to do something constructive, or does it cripple us? Does it paralyze us? And I think
exactly.
that's where the core thing with fear lies, and which is like, if we're looking at something and it produces anxiety, what is it about that activity that makes it anxiety provoking? What is a belief? What is an idea that we're attaching to that experience that
Mhm.
is making it, anxiety provoking in that moment?
Yeah, that's important because a lot of the journey in creativity, or as being an
Mm-hmm.
artist, or in music, or in
Yeah.
songwriting, or in film, right, or in art, or whatever it is that you are doing as a creative, it takes a lot of time. If it's almost like our brains are almost like the dreamer's brain, right? You're
Mm.
thinking about all these beautiful things that can come out of your creation,
Mm-hmm.
but then if you don't stop and acknowledge, hey, like I'm not present with the stuff that I'm creating,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then we're going to spend all of this time thinking about
Mm-hmm.
what I could do, what I should be doing, what I
Mm-hmm.
should have done, instead of saying, okay, this is what I can control now in this
Right.
moment to move forward into my creation or whatever it is that I'm going to do or I need to work on.
And even thinking about the visionary, it's like it's beautiful to have a vision, but there has to be steps that take you there. I think about if we're climbing a mountain,
Mm-hmm.
we see the peak of it. We see what we're aspiring to. We want to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
But how many different steps do we have to take? And it's not just one straight stairwell all the way up. There's different turns, there's different angles, there's different slopes. There's a lot of different things that are on the journey to begin with. So it's like you can have the vision. We want to encourage the vision, but with wisdom, we navigate these steps practically. It's like, what are the things that will take us to that peak?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of obviously, I think there's a lot of processing and
Yeah.
understanding that people need to do to get to that point,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was just telling you earlier, what is stopping me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the only thing that's stopping me is myself, right? It's like, what is stopping me from speaking about XYZ, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, at the end of the day, there's a lot of work that needs to be done personally to get
Mm-hmm.
to that peak, right? And so you could very much be a person with a lot of traumatic events and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of situations that have happened in your life and be stuck in that moment and
Yeah.
in those moments. And so being able to work through those difficulties and
Mm-hmm.
getting yourself a therapist or
Yeah.
finding a friend that you want to talk to about this or finding
Mm-hmm.
some help, right? Um, that will help you move forward
Yeah.
from that, right? And, acknowledging your past is such a huge process of acceptance.
Right.
It takes a lot of courage and bravery for people to accept
Mm-hmm.
things that happened in the past. And so I like to call it, I like to call it radical acceptance, like
Mm-hmm.
accepting what is and what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then moving forward from that and being able to process what comes next and staying in the present at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it could be hard for someone who experienced a very difficult, traumatic childhood or situation.
It even makes me think about like a hero's arc in a story, in which it's like they, more often than not, comes from some kind of hardship that they experienced,
Yeah.
but it's within that hardship that gave them a mission, that gave them something to look forward to. Because there are more often than not moments where we experience tragedies, but it's because we become aware of those tragedies that it gives us the perspective, even the capacity to sometimes, all right, I want to look for a solution to
Yeah.
these kinds of problems that people experience.
I think that step is step number 2.
Yeah.
Because the first step is actually getting to the acceptance
Mm-hmm.
or not avoiding it at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a handful of people that
Yeah.
haven't even acknowledged that certain things happened.
Yeah.
And so, like, getting to that point would be that point would be
Yeah.
the second step, right? Like, the first step is to actually not be in denial at all.
But it's like even some moments where it's like someone could be in a state of denial, but they still take some kind of steps forward. Because I remember there was someone that told me something
Mm-hmm.
before I was trying to go through this government process, and was like, we cannot know,
Mm-hmm.
and we are going to miss 100% of the shots that we don't take.
Mm.
So it's like there are moments in which like we are going to be uncertain about the things that happen. There's very few things that have a guaranteed result, especially in life, because we're going to make decisions and there are going to be consequences to that decision, good or bad, but we can't anticipate what's going to happen until it actually happens.
Yeah.
And then I think that's where there are moments where it's like how we respond to setbacks makes all the difference too.
Yeah, and I have one for that one.
Yeah.
I guess.
Please, yo, take it.
I think this is my abstract therapeutic brain, but
Okay.
I think that if we make a decision in our lives, right, an important decision, think about this, did you have the best intention, heart, and mind when you made that decision, right? So think about it. Regardless of the results that came out of that decision, did your decision have good intent? Did you have a good heart at the time that you made that decision? And was it the best decision possible in that moment? And if those three things align, then you made the right decision, regardless of whether the results were not the best results or were really good results. Because at the end of the day, no one makes a decision to make a horrible decision, like to fail.
Ideally.
Does that make
it's
sense?
like purposely failing.
Yeah,
It's like, no.
so think about that. Like, if you make a decision, did you have those three things? A good heart, a good intention, and did you feel like it was the best decision at the time?
And it makes me think about formulating all those three things. It makes me think of, are we navigating by faith?
Yeah.
The assurance of things hoped for, the convictions of things not seen, good intentions, we want a good result, but did we just go in good faith? Because it's like there are plenty of moments where I made decisions where I'm like, I have no idea how this is going to turn out, and this thing that I'm looking at is very scary.
Yeah.
But by faith, I'm trying to navigate that obstacle the best that I can. Like you said, it's like, okay, did we do the best that we could in that moment?
Yeah.
And then regardless of the consequences, we accept them, but it's an opportunity for it to learn as well from those setbacks that we experience.
Yeah. I think faith goes hand in hand with trust.
Yeah.
And trusting your gut in the moment that you're in, right? And so trusting that whatever the result is, it would be the results. It just is. And so it's like accepting whatever comes out of that and trusting it.
And even if things don't work out for the best, it's like, what if there's something that comes out of it that was even better than you could ever imagine?
Yeah.
So it's like you failed in that moment, but it's like it was the best thing that could have happened for you, even though you don't see it at the time. Because it's like, dude, when bad things happen, we're not going to rejoice in them immediately always. We're going to look at it. We're going to mourn the experience.
Yeah.
But then from there, it's like, okay, we're still navigating by faith. There are other things that we can do as well, in which it's like there are plenty of doors. There are plenty of options. We navigated one. That door closed in your face. It's like, okay, I was really looking forward to this. But there are also other things. And it makes me think about what is the whole person. There are different parts of us. Maybe I was navigating this from, it's like, I really enjoy this physical perspective.
Yeah.
So I want to navigate it as a career field. But then it's like, no, there's something else out there. I don't know what it is, but I want to pursue it anyways.
Yeah.
And it led to a better result than what I could have anticipated in that moment.
Exactly. And it's so interesting to see that because, again, you trusted.
Yeah.
But if you never really trusted that, then how could you even know that it existed?
Yeah.
Right? And so it's almost about that leap of faith, right? Or
absolutely.
that, like, trust whatever it is that decision you made to get to the point where you want to achieve or get to. And it's interesting because you said failures, but I think sometimes you feel like it is a failure, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't necessarily mean that you have failed.
It's like, because even failure in itself is not a bad thing. It's like, how often have we failed in life, period?
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty of failures
Mm-hmm.
that come in life, but it's that response to failure that
Yeah.
leads to success to begin with.
Yeah.
Because it's like, kind of like how you mentioned, the road to get you to where you are,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't just a pristine,
Absolutely
very
not. Yeah.
streamlined process. There
Yeah.
were setbacks to it, but it's, you looked at those moments, you looked at those circumstances, and you decided to continue moving in a direction. You believed it was the right direction, but you kept on going,
Yeah.
and it leads to the result of where you are now.
Yeah. And I think it's important to acknowledge that a lot of the obstacles can come from your environment,
Yeah,
but it could also come from within yourself, right?
self-imposed.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
self-imposed. You can very much say, I can't do this, right?
Mhm.
And so, like, that statement, it's in itself, it's like, okay, that's holding you back.
It
What
even
else
makes me
is?
think about self-sabotaging is a thing too. It's
Yeah.
like purposely, in a way, you don't even know it. It's like you go into a situation,
Yeah.
you said, I'm gonna do this, but I'm not gonna do well, and you end up doing poorly.
Yeah.
And it's like, you see, this is only confirming X, Y, and Z, but then it's like, did we even navigate that in good faith? Did we even try to fail well?
Ooh, that's a good one. Failing well. I haven't heard that one before.
It's like,
Can we just fail together? Let's do it. Fail
because,
well.
dude, I just think
Yeah.
about, for example, PowerPoint presentations.
Yeah.
I would be mortified trying to do a PowerPoint presentation. And I would, preceding that, going up to the podium, going up to the board, pulling up the slides and everything. I'm like, I'm going to do poorly. I'm going to do poorly. I'm going to do poorly. I go up there and I did poorly. But here's another thing, too. I didn't even try preparing for the presentation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I was already setting myself up to fail.
Yeah.
But then there was a moment where it's like, I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm going to do my best. And what is something that I can do in that process? Learn the material,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
become familiar with what I'm going to be presenting, and actually believing the things that I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's a form of advocating. Whenever you're presenting something, you're advocating for it.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to advocate. So then when I was actually in that space of advocating for something, and in a way taking myself out of that moment, the perception of me, I actually did well.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think that this whole point of getting to there
Yeah.
has a lot to do with just that radical acceptance and trust.
Oh, yeah.
And to get to that point, it could really, for some people, it could just be very dragging. It could just be very difficult. And so it's important to step out of that box or, and say, there is something wrong with me, and get to that point and say, what, there's stuff that is not working right now, right? Like acknowledging that shit is not okay.
Yeah.
Right. And saying, I'm having a hard time. I need to get the help that I need.
It makes me think about the moments like just go beyond yourself. It's like, get out of your headspace, go beyond it.
Yeah.
Because it's like there are plenty of moments. It's like I think about that. It's like all this conflict is happening internally, and I'm boxing with myself, and I'm exhausting myself in that process. But when you go beyond yourself, what's the big picture?
Yeah, and I think it's a very slow process for some people, and like it could also be a very quick process for other people.
Yeah.
But it can get to a point where it's like, okay, I know there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
What is my next step, right? Acknowledge and finding the help that you need, right? And so it could take a lot of courage,
Absolutely.
bravery, acknowledgement to find the right person to help you in your mental health. That might even help you in other ways to find that mental health professional, or, doing a quick Google search or, whatever it is. It takes time to get to that point. And when you do get to that point, there's a lot of relief to say, oh wow, like I actually did need
It's the
this.
yeah,
Like
and it's
wow,
like it makes me think about the courage to show up,
yeah, showing up for yourself.
because it's like even thinking about I think it was the introduction for one of Brene Brown's books, and she was referencing Teddy Roosevelt.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the credit goes to the man that actually shows up in the arena. Sometimes we're not going to be prepared. Sometimes we're not always going to have all our ducks in a row. But did we show up?
Interesting. And it's not about having it when you show up having it all perfect.
No,
Because
not at all.
showing up for yourself doesn't necessarily mean, oh, lights, camera, action, here it is, blah, right? It's really about, I know that there's some things that are going to go right.
Yeah.
And I know there's some things that are not going to go so well.
Yes, and it's like I even think about there was a fitness test that I was preparing for. It was like back in the military kind of stuff. And there's certain standards that you need to meet to go into a process. There is the bare minimum and there's a maximum. There's an entire range. It's almost like a spectrum of different scores that you can get.
Yeah.
My frame of mind was, if I was going to do this, I need to be at the very peak of it. But there are some moments where it's like you're not going to perform to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
But sometimes, even when you're not feeling as well as you think you should,
Yeah.
you show up and you actually pass. Honestly, sometimes that's all you need to do. Just show up. And whether you did super well or whether you just scraped by, you still showed up. You still went for it. And there are moments where it's like, yeah, you didn't get the score that you wanted, but guess what? You're moving on anyways, whether you think you're ready or not.
Interesting. So it's almost like making choices, or I guess we can put it in a simpler way would be to you know, create small tasks that are realistic, right? And that don't necessarily you have to meet that expectation, but meet a realistic expectation that you are okay with, right? And being present within that task to and within the process in itself, not just in the achievement, right? Because a lot of people kind of miss that point. It's not about the results. It's about the process of getting to the desired result that you're trying to get to. And so in a creative world, that can be very difficult to navigate because there's a lot of ideas, there's a lot of brainstorming, there's a lot of dreaming
For sure.
In that process. And it's really about how can I create a structure to put myself in this creative space, and yet at the same time set realistic goals for myself and do this creative stuff little by little and get to wherever I want to be at.
Absolutely, because it's like like you said, it's like we're thinking about the goals, we're thinking about the process. Something that came to mind as well is like we got to think of the obstacles too. Like what are the things that are actually keeping us
from doing the things?
Exactly.
Interesting.
Like, so it's like something that I'm experiencing is, my belief is I have a lack of time and I have a lack of energy and I have a lack of focus because there's a lot of different things that are happening throughout the day. There's a lot of different stressors that people experience. There's a lot of different people that have families. They have to tend to those families. They have kids. They have husbands, wives, whatever it is. It's a lot of things that are taking our attention. But here's the thing. Those are wonderful things. Yeah, what's the inevitability of always being occupied in so many different ways? We may not have that space to actually create because our mind is everywhere else except for creating.
Interesting. So is creating a structure or some sort of routine and allocating time for all these different tasks a way to go?
It depends on the person.
Yeah.
It's like naturally for myself, Monday through Friday, I want to have a structure. I want to have a rhythm because that's what the job demands. But then on the weekends, I'm a lot more free flowing because I don't want to deal with structures. I just want to relax. I want to vibe out. But then it's like I'll find myself in a place in which it's like I don't even think about creating because I'm just thinking about relaxing.
Resting.
But then it's like, dude, you ever been to gardens over in like it's like
Miami.
the garden, but oh
Yeah.
no, the
What is it?
Morikami Gardens in
Uh-huh.
Boca.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like sometimes I'll just go there
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I'm just like, wow, nature's really beautiful.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, it's like something comes
Mm-hmm.
from my experience with nature where it's like, it's making me think about something thematically. It's making me think about
Trigger.
exactly. It's triggering something.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there was one time where I went to the gardens and it's like I wrote a poem
Mm-hmm.
while I was at the gardens, but I had no intent or plan, but it just came to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, triggers are gonna
Cues.
happen all the time.
So can we put ourselves in a position to get those triggers? Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's important to, again, acknowledge that that is a trigger, right? And continue that
Mhm.
to allocate the time that you want, realistic time
Yeah.
for that moment, right? And so there's a lot of coping strategies to work through a trigger in that moment. And
Mhm.
so I think the most important part to this is acknowledging that you want to learn how to cope through situations
Yeah.
like this, right? That come up in life, such as a trigger,
Yeah.
right? And so being able to have the courage to say, I need to work on these things that are happening to me so I can do the task that I need to do in life, right? To get to the realistic expectation or goal that I'm setting up for myself.
Reminds me of something that I remember in class, and which is like you can't have a eureka moment unless you're actually processing through something.
Interesting. And there's a lot to that because for myself, my eureka moment has happened now. It hasn't really happened. It's happened in the past.
Yeah.
But I would define this moment for me a more eureka moment than in my childhood.
Oh,
as I would say.
absolutely.
And so it's interesting to see that because it's almost like you're grabbing your situation or your traumatic experience or your hard, difficult time, and you're saying, wow, can I grab all of this experience and turn it into a eureka moment?
Right.
Right? What is the opportunity that I have within the things that I'm working through? And I think that's an important piece to that, right? I know this and 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 this have happened in my life, but what is the opportunity within all of these different difficulties?
It's a perspective that you're taking with it.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. The perspective. Are we going to stay stuck with the 10 million things that have happened in our lives, or are we going to find that opportunity to really work through and heal in some way, shape, or form, such as find an opportunity to grab all of this energy and turn it into a creation or whatever you want to determine as a creation, right? And I say creativity can be a problem-solving piece. I say creativity equals problem-solving. If you don't have to say that you are a creative to be a problem solver or a problem solver to be a creative. I think that people who are problem solvers are creators.
They have to be.
Yeah, because it's a way of thinking and resolving a situation, whether it's in a creative way or whether it's a problem solving way, which is like, okay, I'm gonna find the solution to this situation.
And sometimes we find a solution to another situation by working through one situation.
Yeah.
So it's almost like there are moments where it's like, don't focus on the eureka moment. Keep it in the back of your mind. Work through whatever you're doing and let it come naturally.
Yeah.
It makes me think about happiness. And how was it put for happiness? It's like, this is me paraphrasing it and butchering it in some way. But in which it's like, it's the moment that we pursue happiness that we're never going to achieve it. But letting happiness be a byproduct of doing something that's meaningful to you. So it's like not chasing the eureka moment, working through the process, working through that creative space, and just not pressuring yourself to experience either. Because it's like, I may go back to the gardens another day and nothing may come.
Yeah.
But going back to what you mentioned, can we accept that?
To accept that nothing will come out of something.
Exactly.
So accept that there might be a solution and accept that there might be zero solution.
Exactly.
So being okay again with it, like almost like radical accepting,
Mm-hmm.
accepting what is, which
Exactly.
will bring the behavior back to the present, what you
Mm-hmm.
can do right now in this moment, what you can control now.
And even thinking about when it comes going back to the motivation,
Mm-hmm.
if we're only doing something because we expect a result from it, will we enjoy that same process if we don't get the result that we're looking for?
Mm.
But if something is just satisfying in itself, regardless of the result that you experience,
Mm-hmm.
you'll still keep on doing it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the journey instead of
Exactly.
the achievement or celebration.
It's like, all right, what happens after the achievement?
Yeah.
Because
Interesting.
sometimes we think we're building up to something grand, but then it's like it's just the experience in itself that's grand.
Mm.
It's actually getting up to the mountain peak because it's like you develop the fortitude. You were sweaty, you were tired, you were exhausted, you were sore, yet you finally make it to that peak, and it's like, I don't even care that I'm up here anymore. It was just enjoyable to get up here to begin with. So life
Interesting.
doesn't peak when you reach the mountain peak, it
and and
continues.
I don't think that the journey is going to be enjoyable. There's a lot of things to the journey that aren't necessarily
Mm-hmm.
just enjoyable. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things that you do enjoy, but there's a lot of things that you might not even enjoy at all.
Yeah.
So accepting that you won't enjoy everything
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Yeah,
Being
because not
yeah.
everybody likes to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go do a run or to prepare for something.
Yeah.
But it's like it's finding joy in the mundane.
Mm, yeah.
And I think that's what ends up happening sometimes, in which it's like because we're accepting the excitement. And oftentimes it's like, what do we get in a film? What do we get in a movie? We get the most exciting moments.
Yeah.
I think about when I watch
It's
like
very
a
Hollywood.
exactly
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood is
Way
there's
of
always an
thinking.
excitement, there's a drama, there's music, there's all kinds of different things, but it's like the actual reality of something is not usually as exciting as it's portrayed on television.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people have a misunderstanding, or I would say a delusional understanding
Yeah.
of reality. And that happens a lot in the digital world that we live in.
Yes.
So it's almost like we are all living in a illusion of what it
Because we're only getting
actually is
snapshots of life. We're not getting everything that led up
that
to
has
it and everything
happened.
that's
Yeah,
happening after that either.
exactly. Well, I think this is a great note to end.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to social media and all that, that's an
Yeah,
entirely
that's like a whole
different
hour
conversation. That is a
or
rabbit hole to
more.
go into.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for listening. Thank you so much, Walter, for being
Oh, this
here
was a
and
blast.
having
Thank
a
you.
conversation with me. Keep us subscribe. Keep us on IG. Follow.
Whatever social media
Whatever
platforms we
you
were
want to
just talking
do.
about.
Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.